Hello everyone. As you can see, I'm still on a bit of a roll, and I decided that since this is like the last day of my 5-day holiday, it's like my last opportunity to post like videos or record videos at a furious pace. I'm getting a bit more confident, I guess, also about the fact of like putting my face out there and just having people being like, oh, so who's this guy, kind of. And according to John, is he an ENTP? And this provides me with a fluid introduction to what this video is going to be about. I'm really planning on making it shorter than usual, so I'll jump straight into the topic. It's really a video about MBTI and particularly about my type. I'm not saying that people are interested in this necessarily, but it's also for my own purposes, and if there are some people who turn out to be interested, well, so much the better. And it could also be just a video on MBTI in general. Stream of consciousness, as usual. So, I think that I am an INFJ. I don't really have doubts on that front, but some people picked up, and John is one of them. I think Yolanda's one of them as well, and some other people. Some people picked up that I was quite sensitive about it, about suggestions that I might be of another type. And, sometimes when somebody gets a little bit touchy, gets a little bit sensitive about anything regarding their sense of identity, what they are, what they think they are, what they could be, it means that they're not completely convinced of it. So maybe that means that part of me is not completely convinced of my type. You hear that INFJs are typically like that, but to me it's like a circular argument to say that, oh, I'm not sure of my type, that's an INFJ thing, therefore I'm INFJ. That's not valid. Really, I think fundamentally the reason why I still have this touchiness is because my sense of identity was called into question by a previous relationship. And I'm not going to go into this, but let's say that I was in a romantic relationship from like 2014 to 2016, and the person I was with, but also, I'm not saying that I was completely guilt-free, but the relationship we had, the interactions and how it ended just really left this impression that I was a kind of person, very opposed to what you would typically hear. I'm busy. Okay. This is my mum, by the way, and she answered in English, which I find very nice. I told her, Mum, today I'm speaking English this morning because I'm just practicing for something. She was like, great, because she's an English teacher, so she likes that. She's awesome, by the way. My mum is fantastic, and I will tell her before I leave. So I was coming out of this relationship thinking I was many things that were not positive, and when I explored my type, because I've also just always had these questions about my identity as fluid, I believe in a lot of fluid concepts with regards to identity. You can see that in my philosophy. You can also see that in some posts that you'll notice in terms of what I think about gender and many other things. So there's always this questioning, and it probably will never end, but discovering that INFJ was my type symbolically to me meant more than just discovering my type. It meant that after all, I was possibly somebody who could be capable of being empathic, friendly, profound, rather than smart. No one has ever denied it, I think, for as far as I'm concerned, objectively. I'm not trying to, sing my own praises. But maybe a certain person used to depict me as maybe smart, but in a kind of cunning, clever, manipulative way. And yeah, so like sort of saying, actually, no, my type is INFJ. It corresponds to the function profile. Just had very profound resonance. I think that's why I tend to be a little bit sensitive about questioning this, which is not very rational because you could be a nice person with any type, of course. But there's this whole lore around the INFJ that I guess I vibe with, I guess influences me, and I like to think that I'm a nice person, and maybe that feeds into my this kind of still relatively sensitive defense of my type. All that being said, why do I think that I am one? I think the first reason is that if you look at the function stack, I mean, it's like this is really what I'm interested in more than the dichotomous theory of like, are you I, are you N, are you F, are you J? Because I just think the function interpretation is more precise and it's much more explanatory. You know, you can predict many things based on the function stack of a person. We can't really do that with a merely dichotomous letters thing. So that's enough for me to embrace. And I mean, once I discovered that, it was kind of obvious to me that I was an NI user. It was prior to any other function. NI was the thing that I sort of realized, yeah, this is exactly how my brain works. Because, and this is an answer to John as well, the reason why I think I use NI is it's not because, you know, I have this like mystic's power of reading through a person, telling like, oh, I can tell what that person is feeling, even though they cannot, like, they have not figured it out themselves. I mean, I understand where this is coming from, but to me, it's a bit of a cliche about an INFJ, and I would not have the, I'm sorry to say, the arrogance to pretend I know people better than they know themselves. It's not true. I don't know people better than know themselves. Occasionally, maybe I will just guess something before they do, but that can happen to them in relation to me. So I don't see my use of NI in that sense. I really see it technically as, you might have seen that in my other videos, a stream of consciousness way of thinking. Very much my inner world is like that. But it's always with a purpose. It doesn't really get sidetracked that much. I mean, I heard you, John, you said that in my first video, I got sidetracked quite a bit. To me, it was always very clear where I was going. So imagine that this is where I started. This is the endpoint, okay? The endpoint was always super clear in my head, and precisely because it was clear and very much there, I could allow myself to just veer off and on and back, you know, because I knew where I was going, rather than, and this could be a cliche about any, by the way, but being kind of a little bit more divergent. If you like, my spaciness is convergent, and this is what I think makes me an NI user more than anything else, is this idea that, like, yes, I kind of sometimes enjoy rambling, letting my thoughts stream around my mind, but really the destination is pretty clear and always the same, and has been the same for like decades at this point. Concepts that you see in open monism, some of them, believe me or not, I was already scribbling when I was 17, so that's like 14 years ago, and I was still in high school. Concepts are still useful and I still use. I mean, I have not really opened up about that much in the notes because there's no point, but yeah, they started then, and the same symbols have always been there. So that's really what, you know, convinces me that I use NI. But I use NI too. I mean, it's true that with my brother, who's an INFP and very much an NI virtuoso, I love just having those little NI moments. Super imaginative and creative and funny. But he operates like that constantly, whereas for me, it's more like a mode that I enter in when I'm talking to him. Other than that, I'm just kind of like in my spacey bubble. And I get out of it via FE to interact with people, to interact with you guys. But fundamentally, my realm is NI. Another reason why people sometimes, and myself, might have been confused about my type, I think, is my use of TI, which, according to some, is strong. I do not feel it to be that strong, personally. I think that, from my interaction with TI dominants or TI auxiliaries in real life, I have an ESTP colleague that I'm friends with, TI auxiliary. There are INTPs on the forum, ENTPs as well. I can really tell that TI is very much a core part of how they operate. For me, it's a little bit like what I was saying about those modes that I enter into when I'm in with my brother, with regards to maybe even more often when I have a particular tool. Oh, there's a cat behind me. You can't see it. It's my brother's cat. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I don't want to sort of carry her and show it to you because she's a bit fearful and she might try to kill me. But yeah, TI is definitely something that I have to use in philosophy, for example, and when I'm having logical discussions. And I guess if people think that my TI is prominent, it means that it's probably more prominent than I'm willing to admit. But I'm not a person who's always trying to figure out the meaning of the logical explanation of everything around me. And you hear a lot of TI dominant people say they're always trying to understand how things work. I'm not trying to understand how things work. I'm trying to get closer to my vision and see how things around me fit within it. And that's, I think, something that's more connected with NI and TI as a tertiary. And if you pay close attention, my logical explorations are not particularly professional. I mean, they are, I think, relatively sound, but they're not as technical as you think. They are often a little bit more interested in the aesthetics of the logic and how it can be used as an analogy, like the childlike TI tertiary use that Wayodi talked about once or twice or a million times, not sure. That's kind of what I identify with, rather than the very kind of operative, very clearly, definitively operative TI that guides not just how you sort of operate with FE, but how you just view your world, how you sort of integrate your world as logical. So those are other pointers, I think, towards INFJness. I'm not going to go into SE because it's inferior and it's very obvious from all these videos I've made that my SE is not great. I think that my body movements and my body language betrays it. No words are needed in addition to that. Regarding FE, I mean, sure, INFJs have FE auxiliary, I guess, because I'm a bit weird. my FE is that of a very kind of rational, thinky INFJ. I mean, I'm willing to admit that, but I think it's stronger than people think. Except that it does not really align so much with what, again, I think parallel to the stereotypes by NI are the stereotypes by FE, being super, always willing to help others and blah 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 blah, and super selfless. I'm not the most selfless person, I have to admit it. But I just relate to people with FE. It's clear and it's quite present. Here, Enneagram is very useful because as a complement, you can see, well, okay, there are lots of INFJs are FEs are 2s, so that really aligns with FE as helpful and helper by definition. But you've got also a lot of INFJs who are 4. They still use FE, but in a different sense, slightly different. They still relate in an extrovert feeling sense to people, and that is very important to them. But they will be more 4-ish than 2-ish, if you like. And that's very much me. So, up to you to decide whether I am really an INFJ or not. Luckily, this video is going to be less than half of its typical length, and I think all of you will be very happy about it. Love you all, you're awesome, and I hope to catch up with you soon, wherever you are, whether you're in Geneva or online. See ya!